So a lot of times I get people reaching out to me and they want to start farm. So they see, my farm, they see the structures on the farm, they can see the chicken houses, like you're seeing them right here. I have 4 chicken houses right here. I have a feed store, places where the guys stay. I have a banana plantation right here. I have a lot of stuff on the farm. And currently this farm measures just over 4 acres at the moment. And so someone will find my YouTube video, or they'll find me, maybe on a TikTok video or whatsoever, and then they'll be like, oh, Dr. Daniel has 12,000 birds. And then they're like, okay, I want to do what Dr. Daniel is doing. So they'll send me an email or a message or something I like, and they're like, oh, Dr. Daniel, I want to start a farm just like yours. How much does it cost to start a farm like yours? And then I tell them, well, I have 12,000 birds. It may not make a lot of sense for you to start with 12,000 birds. And then I ask them, so how many birds do you want to start with? And their answer is usually something like, maybe 500 or 1,000. And then they'll be like, how much does it cost to start with 500 birds or 1,000? And I'll do for them a breakdown of how much it would cost. And I'll be like, do you have land or anything like that? They're like, no, I don't have land. I have to get all those things. And then when I give them a figure for like 500 birds or 1,000 birds, a lot of them are like, no way. There's no way it costs that much money. Yeah. A lot of them think, it's probably too much money or something like that. And, it certainly doesn't make a lot of sense for them to start with that. And it's easy for you to assume that the project is going to be easy. I mean, when you see someone like me, or when you see people doing stuff, it's easy for you to think that things are going to come really easy. But the biggest problem is that a lot of people actually want to start really big, or a lot of people want to start with what they don't have, and that turns out to be the problem. I want to share with you guys how I actually started out. I mean, with all the difficulties, and actually made it. Yeah, with all, I wouldn't even call them difficulties, with all the insufficiencies. Because I mean, a lot of people, when you're starting out and when you do want to start out, it's about the insufficiencies, it's about what you don't have. Yeah. And what I want to tell you is that you don't need a lot of money. That is the honest truth. You don't need a lot of money for you to start out with a farm. You can make a lot of shortcuts. Yeah. And I mean, right now, what I'm sharing on the YouTube channel and the things that I share on the YouTube channel is a lot of what I'm currently doing on the farm. And that doesn't paint a very good picture of how I started and what I started doing. And if you could go back and actually watch my YouTube videos, 6 years back or 5 years back when I started the farm, they paint a better picture of how I started, yeah, and how you can actually save money. So you guys can see right here, we've been doing some expansion. So on the other side is actually new land that I bought recently. So I've managed to finally put a gate. I'm going to get some people to, sand it right now. And then I'll paint it later on today. And we're going to soon start construction of a new chicken house on this side of the farm. Actually, today is when everything starts, because my dad, who is usually like my contractor, yeah, he's the one that I usually entrust with like helping me supervise and build the houses around, because he has done it quite a number of times. Now he understands how I want it done. So what I usually do is that I give him all the material and things like that. I take the measurements with him when we are around, and then after that, I leave him in charge. Yeah, and he continues with the construction. So today he's actually cutting the poles that are going to be using for constructing the new chicken house. Yeah, but if I can, just tell you guys, I don't know why they made the gate very low. I mean, just see how low it is, how low someone has to bend in order to get out. Yeah. So if I can just tell you guys very briefly how I started 6 years ago. This is 2025. I started in 2019. So that's 6 years ago when I started. When I started in 2019, first of all, I was working as a doctor. Very big privilege that a lot of people don't have. But also, not too big if you consider how much I was earning, depending on which country that you live in, yeah? And what you do and how much money you earn. At that point, I was earning about maybe $800 in terms of payment. That's what I was earning in terms of net salary per month. I was working as a doctor, and so I could save a lot of my money. Actually, as soon as I started working, I saved more than 50% of my salary, maybe 70% of my salary. I did save. But even after saving that, I still had a very huge deficit. So when I started out and I wanted to build my very first chicken house, I remember I built a chicken house that has the capacity to do about, with the standard spacing, maybe 1,700 birds or something like that. I actually packed it up to 2,000 birds because I stocked it, a bit higher than usual. That chicken house measures 15 by 8 meters and it's 2 floors. Yeah. If you calculate that in terms of spacing of 6 birds per square meter, it might actually be 1,500 birds, not even 2,000, but I keep there 2,000 birds. And at that time, I remember that I started making calculations of how much I need for feed and all things like that. And I considered, and I told myself, I think I can manage to handle, 1,000 birds. But then I was like, well, I'll go conservative. I'll do 750 baht. So I paid for 750 bahts and brought them in. When I brought them in, first of all, the first thing you need to know is that first, even with that, I didn't build the chicken house on my land. I built the chicken house on my dad's land. Now, a lot of you guys are going to be like, well, that's a privilege that you do have that a lot of us don't have. Your dad did have land. True, my dad did have land. First of all, I want you to understand that the amount of land that my dad had was actually very small. It was about a third of an acre, and I placed my chicken house just in front of his house. Yeah, so you can imagine the place where you live, and someone builds a chicken house of 1,500 birds in terms of capacity right in front of it. Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't accept that because they'd be like, the house is going to smell and all those things. And honestly, I hadn't started at that time. The whole imagination at around that time was that poultry houses would smell and things like that. I of course learned later on that they need to smell, but my dad let me use his land. Yeah, and also because, as you guys can say, we are in a village, we're not like in a city or things like that. So I mean, it was easy for him to, let me utilize the land. The value is not too much. That's number one. I mean, to build a chicken house in front of his place. But the other thing is that one thing that you guys don't think about is that a lot of you people actually do have the privilege. If you look around yourself and you look at the opportunities you have, you probably know someone somewhere who does have land. Yeah, you probably know someone who does have land. Someone close to you, maybe a relative, maybe an auntie, maybe an uncle, maybe a parent who does have land that they're not utilizing. Yeah, especially if you're in Africa, because a lot of us have inherited land. I mean, in terms of parents. Yeah, my dad, that land that he gave me actually was given to him by his father. Yeah, it was like cultural land. They divided it into portions and they gave him that section. Yeah, so it's where I put it up. Yeah, so the second thing was that I spent about $3,000 on building my first chicken house. And now, of course, $3,000 is a lot of money, and many people might not be able to save it, but you don't need to save $3,000. Yeah, for me, that's what I managed to save because I was working as a doctor and I did have that privilege. Yeah, and I started with 750 bahts. I mean, if you look at where I am right now, I mean, you guys can see chicken houses in the distance, in the background over there. Yeah, if you look at what I'm doing and the things I'm doing right now and where I started from, I shouldn't be at this point. Yeah, I'll probably be behind if you're considering, the progress that other people usually make in such a time. I've probably grown too fast, too quickly for a lot of people. And I mean, that's a beautiful thing, but it's not the norm. It's not the usual thing. Yeah, you can start with a smaller number of birds. Yeah, so if you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, Dr. Daniel, 500 birds. First of all, I don't have the land. Second of all, the cost that you've told me is so high. The one thing that I want to tell you is that you need to be able to adapt and improvise. Guys, I improvised a lot when I was starting out. Like I was telling you guys, I mean, right now I do and use a lot of things that I didn't utilize then. Yeah, if someone wants to start right now, they might want to start like me. If you look at my poultry houses, well, my poultry houses, I would still advise you to build something close to that because, I mean, they are really cheap and efficient. It depends on where your farm is located though. If your farm is located in an area which is like, it has a lot of termites and things like that, then I would advise that, you go with another alternative. Probably don't start by using poles at the bottom or something like that. But if your area doesn't have too much termites like I am right here, I mean, every place has its advantages and disadvantages. Recently, I was building a farm for someone who is in the Farm Up Academy. I mean, meanwhile, if you want to join the Farm Up Academy, I'll leave a link in the description below. You just go and check it out. You'll get some information or some instructions right there where you can book a call with me. Yeah, so I'll leave a link for you right there in the description of the video. But I was building a farm for someone who is in the Farm Up Academy, and the location where the farm is, it has quite an amount of termites, which is actually a disadvantage for him. But he also has an advantage in that we were able to hand dig using hands. Yeah, people were able to dig into the ground, and we only dug about 35 feet, and we encountered water. This guy can pump about 7,000, 8,000 liters of water every day using a hand pump. Now, that thing, digging that place probably cost him maybe $1,200, $1,500. Drilling my borehole right here at the farm cost me about $6,000. Well, just the drilling alone, yeah? The drilling alone cost me about maybe $6,000, $7,000 for the drilling alone. So, I mean, the disadvantage with my area is that getting water is difficult. There's a lot of rocks under and things like that. The advantage is that there's no termites, so I can build my chicken houses for much cheaper, yeah? So, depending on where your farm is located, you might have that advantage or that disadvantage. The idea is for you to be able to adapt, yeah? So, first of all, I built my chicken house using this material, number one. Number two, I used borrowed land from my dad. The good thing with borrowed land from your dad is that he'll never tell you to pay. Number one. Number two, he's most likely not going to chase you away, especially if you're not like in a city where he might want to put up, a rental building or a commercial building. I mean, yeah, he let me use it. He's my dad. Yeah, that's number two. Number three, I improvised a lot when it does come to the stuff inside. I mean, if you look at like the feeders that I was using. Now the feeders were a bit standard, but the drinkers that I was using jerry cans that I would just cut, and you know, I mean, it would probably cost, it cost me less than $2 to make a drinker. Now currently, the drinkers I utilize right now, the automatic drinkers, cost me about maybe $15 more or less for each one of them. But then they cost me $2. Yeah. So if I make a calculation for you for how much you need to start with 500 birds, if you probably go and, you know, improvise, you're probably going to bring your costs down by, you know, you're going to reduce your cost by maybe 20 or 30%. Yeah. Because imagine coming in terms of drinkers from, you know, $15 to $2. I had to do $2, yeah? Now it's certainly going to be much more labor intensive, it's going to require a lot of work from your side and things like that, but you can cut those costs, yeah? It's going to need you to be a bit more available. Now, I don't need to be so available because I've set in place systems. I've got a lot of people who I can train or who I have trained, and they know how to run the farm and do stuff like that. Like I've told you guys, right now I don't need to be available in this area. I mean, so close right here. We're going to start building a chicken house this week. Yeah, we're going to start putting up structures, and it's not going to be difficult for me. Why? Because I've put in place structures. I've just told you guys that I've taught my dad, and he has got a team of builders who we utilize to build the structures. So a while back, what would probably take me 2 months now takes us about 1 month and then 3 weeks. In fact, right now we can build a chicken house in just over 2 weeks. In fact, 2 to 3 weeks, we have a chicken house ready. Yeah. So I've set in place, I mean, such things and such systems that ensure that I can, you know, build chicken houses and, you know, build my farm and expand my farm, and it's not complicated. And it's 100% possible for you, yeah? The only thing you need to do is make sure that, number one, you understand how to start and build a farm, yeah? And, you know, the one thing that I consistently tell people who are starting out or who are doing anything is that the key thing is knowledge and skills, yeah? Knowledge and skills. Because once you get the knowledge, I mean, the most expensive thing you could ever pay for is the knowledge and skills. Now, I personally actually started that way by trying to visit some farmers and things like that. The knowledge, though, that was available wasn't the very best. It was quite hard for me to consolidate it and get it together. A lot of times it was wrong. I learned a lot of times, you know, through try and error, mistakes. I lost a flock of birds to fall typhoid and things like that. So yeah, I made my fair share of mistakes. But with time, I learned that, yeah? And then, after I started making some money and had some money available to me, the next more important thing for me was making sure that I get better skills, yeah? So, I mean, once in a while I would spend money on, you know, trainings, whether it's to do with sales, whether it is to do with, you know, some computer stuff, so that I can learn how to run the better, yeah? So the one thing that I can tell you is that if you have any money and you want to focus on anything, the one thing that you need to focus on is learning as much as possible, getting skills. Because, for example, it doesn't matter what would happen, even if I lost this entire farm. The one thing that someone can't take away from me is my skills, and I can utilize the knowledge and skills that I have gotten to start and build a farm again, 100%, yeah? So, if you're that kind of person who is interested in starting and growing a farm, then I can say to you with confidence, 100%, that you need to get skills, learn these skills. And what better place to learn skills from than the Farm Up Academy? Again, I'll leave a link for you in the description of the video. Now, after that, you just need to make sure that you start as small as possible. I mean, start small, yeah? I tell people that if you started with 100 birds and you grow at exactly the same pace as I'm growing right now, because I mean, I've been able to grow my farm, I think it's like 15 times. I mean, if I started with 750 birds, and right now I have like, you know, 12,000 birds. I think my farm has grown like 12 or 15 times. Yeah, its initial size. So if you start with 100 birds and you go through the exact learning time that I've taken and implement the correct things, in 6 years, you'll probably have 1,400 birds. Guys, that's amazing if you start with 100 birds. Really amazing. Now, if you actually even learn and, you learn and get the skills, even get better than I did, you'll probably, probably be able to double that. Maybe do 3,000 in 6 years or something like that, yeah? So what you need to understand is that it's possible, yeah? There's nothing complicated about it. You just need to, be focused, be willing to learn along the way. You don't need to start the way I'm doing things. I mean, the way I'm doing things is for someone who has started a while back and now they have some money to invest into the farm, yeah? Crazily and interestingly, guys, I actually almost never take money out of the farm, yeah? So the farm does make money, but all the money goes back into expansion and growing the farm, yeah? And that's a very beautiful thing. So I almost never get anything out of the farm, which is something I actually do love because, I mean, I don't need it at the moment. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video and you've taken learning points out of this. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell. Catch you very soon with another one. Lots of love. Bye-bye.